Springfield organization that built villages of tiny houses for the homeless is celebrating a legal victory tonight over what it called a law that criminalized homelessness. Joe Hickman has the Missouri Supreme Court's decision to strike down the law that bans homeless people from sleeping or camping on state government land.
Even when House Bill 1606 was passed and signed into law in 2022, there were many questions about the wide-ranging 64-page document, whose main topic was city and county governing procedures, but also included a late amendment on homeless programs with several new edicts. One, that state funds for the homeless must only be used for short-term shelters, not permanent housing. Two, that it was illegal for anyone to sleep, camp, or make long-term shelters on state-owned property. And three, that the Attorney General could sue any city or county that did not enforce the sleeping and camping ban. There were many who felt the legislation was unclear. And the Gathering Tree, the organization that builds Eden Village's permanent housing for the homeless, joined a group filing a lawsuit against the state, claiming the laws essentially criminalized homelessness. After losing in circuit court, the case was appealed to the Missouri Supreme Court, which yesterday voted unanimously to throw out all the laws in the House bill.
We unleashed an incredible amount of resources, but it was worth it. And it also sends a message. Housing is the only way to end homelessness, and we can't sneak things in.
One important thing to note, though, is that the Supreme Court did not strike down the bill based on the homeless content. Justices based their decision on a part of the Missouri Constitution that says no bill shall contain more than one subject matter. The state argued that it fell under city and county governance.
Because cities will be involved in the process of enforcing this new law. So we felt like it was a smokescreen to try to redefine how we provided care to the homeless community.
So what's next? Well, while the Gathering Tree doesn't believe the House Bill 1606 properly addressed the homeless problems, they are willing to work with legislators on new approaches.
Hopefully, they'll invite people who know something by working every day with the unsheltered into a conversation about the best way to provide assistance.
Reporting for KY3, I'm Joe Hickman.